Welcome, my name is Lina Albanna and this is my second video on COVID-19. My first video is about the pathophysiology of the viral infection and transmission. However, in this video I'll be focusing on the benefits of masks and whether or not they could help flatten the curve. So, before I go into detail about that, I'd like to explain what masks are in general. As most of you know, a mask is basically an object, usually worn on the face, either for disguise, protection, or entertainment. However, since this video is about COVID-19, then I'm obviously not going to talk about disguise nor entertainment, but protection. Now, I'll briefly explain the different types of medical masks. Number 1. Homemade masks. These are very easy to make and are mainly used in public places, such as grocery stores. A mask that's often seen today is a surgical mask. However, it's mainly used by surgeons, so they don't get germs on their patients. The N95 respirator is mainly used for medical or environmental emergencies. The P100 respirator, otherwise known as the gas mask, is used for painting and woodworking. The full-face respirator provides protection for people who work with gases and vapors, and last but not least, the self-contained breathing apparatus, which is mainly used by firefighters. In this video, I'll be focusing on surgical masks and N95 respirators. I'll also be teaching you how to make your own mask. Although before I talk about them in detail, I'll be explaining how this virus actually spreads. There are three main reasons behind this. It could either spread through respiratory droplets, aerosols, or by contact. However, it's mainly transmitted between people through respiratory droplets, and that is, when a person inhales the droplets containing the virus, he or she becomes infected. When the infected person coughs or sneezes, he or she can easily transmit the virus. Some studies have shown that it could also be transmitted via direct conversation, and that's one of the reasons why social distancing is required. Moving on to aerosol transmission. Aerosols are basically solid or liquid particles suspended in air, such as fog and mist. When the viral particles are released from an infected person, they are emitted in different sizes. They could be very small, big, or intermediate. These viral particles could also be small enough to be considered aerosols, which could remain viable for up to 3 hours. And last but not least, contact transmission. This is basically when the viral particles released from the respiratory tract of an infected person land on a surface, and then another person touches that surface, followed by touching his or her face, specifically the eyes, nose, or mouth. To summarize it all up, when an infected person coughs, sneezes, or speaks, droplets containing the viral particles are emitted. Studies have shown that the large particles could travel up to 2 meters, which is basically 6 feet. Anyone nearby could easily be infected. These particles will then either fall, contaminating surfaces. Anyone who touches that surface followed by touching his or her face will very likely be infected. Or they will evaporate, leaving small droplet nuclei suspended in air, which could remain viable for up to 3 hours and infect other people. One of the logical ways of preventing the transmission of an infection is to cover its source, which is the mouth and nose, using a face mask. As I said earlier, I'll be talking about surgical masks and N95 respirators, which you can further divide into ones that do not contain a valve and others that do. I'll start with surgical masks. A surgical mask, like any other medical mask, forms a boundary that separates the wearer's nose and mouth from the environment. If worn correctly, it can prevent the viral particles from escaping. And from a different point of view, if worn correctly, it could also block large particles. However, it doesn't provide complete protection from germs and other pathogens because it fits loosely, which means it mainly protects others from infection rather than the wearer. Another extremely important point is that this mask should never be shared or reused. Due to the limited availability of surgical masks, the CDC recommends using cloth face coverings. So right now, I'll be showing you a very simple way to make your own face mask. The things you need are only a piece of cloth and 2 hair elastics or rubber bands. The first step is to fold the top and bottom edges about halfway through. You're then going to flip it, and do the same thing on the opposite side, so fold both edges. Finally, place one hair elastic or rubber band on each side and take the ends and fold them. And with that being done, you've completed an extra layer of protection for you, your family, and your community. But please make sure to cover your nose and mouth properly. Moving on to the N95 respirator. Let's break this word up. The N stands for not resistant to oil. 95 means it blocks at least 95% of very small particles, specifically 0.3 microns. And the N95 respirator is, as the name suggests, a respiratory device. Using this mask can be difficult for people with chronic respiratory, cardiac, or other medical conditions, and for those people, a model containing an exhalation valve can make breathing easier. And just like the surgical mask, N95 respirators shouldn't be shared or reused. Its advantage over surgical masks is that it protects the wearer against very small particles, in addition to protecting others. On the other hand, the valve-containing N95 respirator blocks viruses from entering. However, it allows some viruses to escape through the valve. The CDC also recommends wearing a mask and doing the following to help flatten the curve. Maintain at least a 2-meter distance from others. Avoid touching your face, specifically your eyes, nose, or mouth. Stay home and wash your hands regularly and thoroughly to kill the viruses before they enter your body. And last but not least, I'll be showing you the correct way to wear a mask. First of all, wash your hands with soap and water or your hand sanitizer. The colored surface of the mask should face outwards and the white one should face inwards. When you wear the mask, make sure to cover your nose, mouth, and chin properly. Press the concealed metal wire down to fit the shape of your nose. It is very important not to touch the outer surface of the mask as it may contain the viral particles. And last but not least, after removing the mask, wash your hands once again. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it and have a great day.